Brought to you by Goldilocks, offering smart security systems to homes and businesses. Call Goldilocks at 708-889-5600.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. So yesterday, amid all of the focus on the situation in the Middle East with Israel and Iran and what President Trump may do, we did hear from Jay Powell, and Trump did take judicial notice of Jay Powell moving to keep interest rates the same, which is not something he wanted. He's been complaining about Powell's lack of alacrity when it comes to cutting rates. And Powell said in the decision to keep rates the same, and I'm just going through all this interest rate stuff because I know it's going to enrage our next guest. Jay Powell said, we haven't been through a situation like this and think we have to be humble about our ability to forecast it. There are many, many different scenarios where inflation does and doesn't prove out to be at the levels we think, where the labor market does or doesn't soften. Wow. We have to be humble about our ability to forecast it. That's a phrase you don't hear from our experts, our bettors, the mystics on the board of the Fed very often. Is this some real newfound humility based on a review of, I don't know, the last decade? Probably go back much further than that, but let's just focus on the last decade of Fed policy. Does any of it matter? John Tamny, editor of RealClearMarket's.com and author of The Money Confusion, How Illiteracy About Currencies and Inflation Sets the Stage for the Crypto Revolution. John, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
I know we had you on because I know you love to talk about Jay Powell and his importance.
Yes, well, as we've discussed before, prices are an effect of global cooperation of millions of hands and machines around the world combining to make things. The idea that the Fed could do anything with interest rates to affect the direction of prices one way or the other, it's just not serious. And it amazes me, as I always say, in the future they'll marvel at how seriously we took the Fed in the past.
But you're. This is not to say that monetary policy doesn't matter to you.
Well, monetary policy, dollar policy matters because the dollar is the world's currency.
Right.
The only thing is the dollar's exchange value has never been part of the Fed's portfolio. There's this myth that ever since the Fed was created in 1913, the dollar plummeted in value. Well, no, that's actually not what happened. In 1933, FDR decided to devalue the dollar. The Fed chairman, Eugene Meyer, begged him not to do it. In fact, he resigned over it and bought the Washington Post as a vehicle to criticize this inflationary president. But he had no control over what FDR did. Fed chairman Arthur Burns in 1971 begged President Nixon, do not sever the dollar's link to gold. That's a devaluation.
Right.
Nixon ignored him. Presidents get the dollar they want. Devaluations are as old as money is that they well predate central banks. And so this focus on them and their, quote, monetary policy is a waste of time. Where there's production, there's always money.
And so when we think about the Fed, sort of the libertarian push to audit the Fed that Ron Paul was behind for so many years, is that a fruitless discussion? To the extent we have a discussion about the Fed, should it just be whether or not it should be eliminated? And anything short of that is irrelevant?
Yeah. What does the Fed do? The Fed tries to set an interest rate. Well, the interest rate's the most important price in the world, which tells you the Fed sets nothing. Markets set interest rates. There's an interest rate for every person and business on the planet Earth. The Fed regulates banks. Oh, how'd that work out? the Fed doesn't have a purpose, and that's why it keeps searching for one. But that's government. Let's not act like the Fed is somehow different here. But the idea of auditing it, sure. But what are you going to get from that? Problem is the Fed's here in the first place. But that's true of a lot of government entities.
On the fiscal policy side, your view on one or both versions of the big, beautiful bill and what sort of impact the combination of, mainly it's the tax relief and an extension of SAD. There's some other things that are interesting, like the federal school choice program. And there are some things that are troubling, too, like the amount of spending. But you're net on the big, beautiful bill.
I think it's vastly overrated. Isn't it interesting that the, quote, media, they keep saying that it's just a big tax break for the rich. But if you look at the bill, it's largely a tax break for poor and middle earners, which is a sign that it's not a growth-oriented bill, precisely because they will consume what they get back. There's no growth in that. Growth is from investment. And that's why if you really want to grow the economy, you reduce the burden on the rich. But these bills, both in 2017 and now, target the rich. I'm a libertarian. I think the vast majority of taxation should be local, cities and states. And I think it should be so encouraged that we have government and taxation in cities and states that we should allow people to credit what they throw to cities and states against what they send to federal. Republicans don't want that. They want more money flowing to Washington, at which point they're looking to try to largely keep the state and local tax deduction low. Well, okay, that means that the richest Americans in Illinois, California, New York, throw Texas in here, throw Florida in here, will pay more taxes to the federal government because they have a lot more local taxes that they send to their states that they can no longer deduct against federal, which means we grow the federal government even more.
Well, yeah, but the flip side is it's the 50 laboratories of democracy, and if you want to live in a failed state named Illinois or California, New York, and pay confiscatory taxes, well, then that's your choice. Precisely,
but that makes my point. That's where you want the taxation to be. I want the mistakes of California to stay in California. Right. I do not want California money to flow to the federal government where they can damage us. Government spending is bad. It's the central planning of resources. So as much as possible, we want that to occur in these laboratories so people can see the failures of. You can kind of put a fence around the laboratories. And so my thing, once again, is, look, I want growth, but if you want growth, you can't tax the H out of the rich. And the Trump tax cuts in 2017 and now, they are not tax cuts for the rich. Anecdote is a terrible thing, but I have yet to meet a rich person who didn't see a big tax increase under Trump. Is that pro-growth? No. Is that a way to limit government by flowing even more money to Washington? I think not.
Well, which version do you like better, the House or Senate's version of the big, beautiful bill?
I like the House's better, probably because, well, two reasons. For one, the House at least tried.
Hire
the
Salt.
New York congressman to hire Salt. And to be clear, I'm not one of the rich guys. But see, I want rich people to keep their money in the states. That's where taxation should occur. That's where all the dumb spending should occur, not federally. And so the House I probably like a little bit better. But, these are all bad. We always knew this.
Yeah.
Ronald Reagan wanted to cut government. But he realized when he got into office that every single program has at least one Republican constituent. And so it's really hard to reduce spending. That's why I don't want entitlement reform. Because if you do that, what if you saved a lot of money? Are they going to burn it up? No, they're going to discover new ways to spend it. No act of reducing government spending cuts actually reduces government. It just flows it to new ideas. I'd rather the damage we keep the damage where it is and just stop the flow of money into Washington. But no one agrees with me.
You mean just take an approach that is more sort of in the subsidiarity tradition? It's just have most of these matters dealt with at the state and local, at the government closest to the people.
Yeah, that's where you want it. It's harder to waste money the closer the politician is the person, but when they're in Washington, it's kind of hard to watch what they're doing there. And I just somehow the Republicans and their desire to nail those blue states, those bad blue states, have missed the point. Governor Pritzker, Governor Newsom, they are offering the red states the ultimate giveaway. We will contain all the damage of government in our states, and we will help you keep that money from reaching Washington. Instead of jumping all over that, we have Republicans saying, no, you get that money to Washington. We don't want the SALT deduction will lead to a revenue loss. There's a cost associated with that. Oh, really? Since when do we work for the federal government?
Yeah. No, I mean, I do hear what you're saying. It's a good argument. There's but the political angle is, you certainly believe incentives matter, and the political angle is, well, the way to change people's behavior is with a carrot or a stick, and this is a stick.
Yeah, but it's a stick that. Why does Washington always have to be the winner of the stick?
Well, I hear you.
This means that more money's getting to Washington. I want, if California sucks so bad, and that's what our saying, well, then let it suck, and let the people who choose high taxation locally pay their high taxes and contain the damage by sending less money to Washington. We keep talking about debt and all this, and oh my gosh, it's so scary. Well, why do you think we have so much debt? Do investors lend to people who have a lot of revenue or very little? The national debt is an effect of way too much money flowing to Washington. Yet the happy talkers from our side keep saying, well, if we just get more revenue, we'll pay off the debt. No. More tax revenue is why we have the debt. And until people realize that, it's just going to grow and grow. America is going to get richer and richer. The federal government will have more and more money, and it will borrow more. If you have me on 20 years from now, guaranteed, if we continue on this path, the debt will be much higher. Will we be in a world of hurt, as all the people, the skulls say? No. But the federal government will be bigger.
You mentioned some of the provisions. I think you're insinuating some provisions that are not particularly growth oriented. That would include things like no taxes on tips up to $25,000, no taxes on overtime up to, I think, $12,500. Right? Those are the sorts of things you're talking about. Yeah,
and to be clear about that, I will literally run to an ATM machine to not tip a waiter on the credit card. I think that's so mean to do that to them. I always tip in cash, and it drives family members of mine nuts, but I always do it.
Are you a good tipper?
I am, because I love and especially since the lockdowns, my tips have gone way up because I saw what these guys did. These people have their little businesses, and politicians rob them of their businesses. So I go out of my way.
Yeah.
But let's be clear. No taxes on tips. There's no growth in that.
Right.
Because, again, they don't earn a lot of money. They're going to spend it. Consumption doesn't drive growth. Investment drives growth.
Right. But that's where I was going. But, so I understand it's not growth oriented. But what about the argument that, look, any amount of money that we're able to allow people to keep for themselves and not have to tithe the state, that's a good policy. Whatever we can do to keep more money in the hands of people that earned it, it's good. And even if it's a bit of a meatball Sunday because some people are getting a break and other people are not, and the tax code is Byzantine and unknowable and so forth, I get all those criticisms. But where we can, if we can put money in the hands of keep money in the hands of the people that earned it, that is a good thing, even if it is not a growth thing.
Absolutely, 100%. I agree with you all day. I want them to reduce taxes every which way they can. So I don't think it's growth-oriented, but I want it. I just want what you've just said applied to rich people. I don't see why they owe so much more than we do.
Yeah.
And so I want it, because think about if I get a tax cut, I've got bills to pay. It's just that simple. Good. I want to keep more of what I earn. If Jeff Bezos gets a tax cut, he has no choice but to invest it. And there are no companies, no jobs, there are no entrepreneurs without investment. The future Jeff Bezos can't innovate without capital. And so when you reduce the tax burden on the rich, the growth effects of it and the freedom effects of it are enormous.
Well, I mean, he doesn't. He's got that big wedding coming up, and and I mean, so that's not going to be nothing. Yeah. He's going to have to spend.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
And I don't.
Are you on the list, Dan?
And I don't know. I don't know if everybody will, leave a check that covers the cost of their dinner or not for him. I mean, I don't know.
What's he doing he's too rich to get married. What's he doing?
That's exactly.
I'd love to see the registry. Yeah.
You know what's funny, John? That's exactly what I say about myself, and I'm nowhere near as rich as Jeff Bezos. John Tamny, editor of RealClearMarket's.com, author of The Money Confusion, How Illiteracy About Currencies and Inflation Sets the Stage for the Crypto Revolution. Thanks, John.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to Dan and Amy on your smartphone. Download the AM560 mobile app today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Patrick was way behind on his IRS taxes.
I was in way over my head. The total